Going to add this prospect to Outreach. Let's see what happens. Okay, cool. Prospect got created. On the right-hand side, we have the profile info. So we have name, company, title, and email address. Next to the email address, you have the email status indicator. This is one of the really nice features built into Outreach. It's basically a dot next to the email address that reps can go in and manually mark with either valid, invalid, or questionable. And this could be an indication for other reps using the system and maybe working to lead at a later date, whether the email was good or bad when the rep tried reaching out previously. By default, it doesn't really do anything. So again, if you're not manually using this field, it's kind of useless. It's just there. But I want you to keep an eye on that dot because we're in an interface there. Um, Now I'm going to hit the refresh button on the page just so you can see the UI update with Boring. But just to clarify, you don't have to hit refresh for Boring to work. Boring already did its job. You can see on the back end, if we go to the activity log, you can see a prospect was created, and Boring already did some stuff that we'll talk about by updating an opt-out status and updating some custom fields. But I'll hit refresh so you can see that change happen on the screen as well. So if I hit the refresh button, you'll see the prospect was opted out of email communication. The dot next to the email is marked with red invalid, and we also marked the custom field down here with the status in plain text as well, with the status here invalid, and in a custom field telling you when the email is verified. So we have today's date, November 20th, 2024. So let's go through these one by one. So the dot obviously is a visual indicator that lets people know the email is no good. But in addition to that, we also opt the prospect out of email communication. And the reason why we do this is because if you just put this dot as red, it doesn't prevent the rep from sending an email by accident. So if you're selecting a bunch of if a rep is selecting a bunch of prospects from an account page or from a prospect view, they may not necessarily see this dot is here, and they may just add them to a sequence anyways. And so what we do basically is we automatically opt the prospect out of email communication for you. So that way, if you add them to a sequence, one of two things can happen. You can either have it configured to block that prospect from being added to a sequence at all. So you may have a policy where reps have to find the valid email for a prospect before reaching out in a sequence in general. Or you may want them to be able to add this prospect to a sequence, but just automatically skip those email steps in the sequence. So if there's a call and LinkedIn task in that sequence as well, the rep can still execute those tasks and still reach out to this person effectively, but just avoid the email bounces. That's what we have set up. So I'll show you how that works. If I add this prospect to a sequence, we'll pick one that's multi-channel, so it has call, email, and LinkedIn steps in the sequence. I'm going to do the first step so you can see what it looks like in terms of the auto skipping. So this first step in the sequence is to make sure that this prospect's profile is formatted correctly, their company is formatted correctly, etc. So I'm going to mark this one as complete. That's step one, mine. And then if we go into the sequence overview over here, we'll see that this prospect is already up to step three. And that's because step two got skipped automatically, which was an email step since the email is bad, and we opted this prospect out of email communication. If you want to enable a second workflow, the one I mentioned before, which was to block the prospect from being added to a sequence in general, you'd go to this tab over here, the admin settings, you'd go into first org info, and you'd make sure that you have opt-out settings ticked here. This box, which is called granular opt-out, have it enabled. And what this does is it essentially allows you to opt prospects out of call, email, and SMS separately. And that means that if you want to not reach out to someone via email, but still you want to be able to call them and send them text messages if you have that feature enabled in Outreach, then you can do that. In general, this is turned off, and when you opt someone out, it opts them out of all channels of communication. We recommend turning this on so you have that flexibility. Once this feature is enabled, you go to your workflow automations. We'll go to, sorry, this section, go to rule sets, and click on the one that's marked as default. If you have multiple rule sets that you're using, you might want to do this in all of the rule sets. You'll have a new section here called opt-out settings. In this section over here, you can determine what should happen when a prospect is opted out of email. And in Boring's case, it's when the email is bad, Boring automatically opts them out. How do you want to handle that prospect? So we have allow prospect to be added to sequence and skip your email steps. But the other option would be to prevent them from being added to a sequence and finish if already active. So you have the option to do either one. We prefer the second option here because it's more seamless in the workflow. It auto skips the email step, but still lets the rep reach out via other channels. So that's essentially what Boring enables. So shows you the email is no good, automatically opts them out, and then enables this workflow of the auto skipping. And the utility is it makes it impossible to send an email that bounces, and that is beneficial in two ways. One, it prevents you from sending a bad email out, which hurts your domain reputation. So we're fixing that issue. But more importantly, I think it's preventing reps from wasting time personalizing an email for 5 or 10 minutes that won't be seen. And then thirdly, which is when you add someone to a sequence in Outreach and you send them an email and it bounces, that sequence freezes. So the sequence stage will turn to failed, and that sequence will not move forward. So that prospect is not being reached out to or getting messages on any channel. So no task is going to queue for this prospect. And essentially, by having Boring opt out email, it auto skips those email steps. So instead of sending an email and having it bounce and having the prospect never be contacted ever again via call or LinkedIn either, because the sequence again stops, it freezes. Instead, you have the prospect being engaged over other channels and avoiding those bounces. So you're really getting in touch with that prospect whereas you wouldn't have without Boring's workflow automation built in. So that's Boring in general, auto verification, constant, seamless, and speedy. Now, I still haven't explained why this text field is necessary, so I'll explain that in a second. But first, I want to show you one other thing, and that is that Boring is not just a static one-time verification, it's running perpetually. And if a rep would want to go in and maybe guess the prospect's email address because they're an important prospect and they want to get in touch with them, let's try like first name dot last initial, could be a common format here. So if I update the email inside of Outreach, I'll give the plugin a second to run. We'll go to the activity log and see if it's already updated. I can see some stuff happened here. Valid, opt-out reverted. So if I hit refresh here, you'll see the UI change. Again, valid, opt-out reverted, custom field says valid now. And this would basically just let the rep carry on as normal. So it's perpetual verification all the time. Again, the three cases where Boring runs is if you add a prospect net new, if you add an existing prospect to a sequence, or if you change an existing prospect's email address, that triggers the plugin to run, which gets a notification through Outreach's integration API through a webhook, and then we verify the email in real time, put the status back into Outreach, and set off the workflow automation of your choice, so your reps can work the lead and avoid email bounces. So that's the whole plugin. Two more things I'll show you. So one is related to this custom field over here. First, I'll show you how to set it up, and then I'll show you why it's useful. So first, how to set up this custom field. Super simple. You go to two places. One is you have to go into Outreach, go to your prospects. Under records, go to prospects and pick the field that you want us to mark the email status with. Let's say for argument's sake here, it's field 31. So we'll name it email status. We'll hit save. And then once we do that, we'll go, I'm not going to actually say this here. So we already have it set up. We're going to go into the Boring app. So the Boring app can be found in Outreach under the app section once you download it, called Verify Emails. We have another one called Enrich Emails. I'll tell you about that in a minute, but I won't do the demo here. And so inside the app, you have a settings page, and here's where you can map your fields. So you can see mark a custom field with each prospect's email status. We have it turned on, and we pick the field. I said 31, but really we have it set to 25. But that's how you would map it basically. So you go into Outreach, name the field so it shows up visually as email status, and then you can map it inside of Boring. We also have one for email verification date. So it's the date the email was verified. Map that field, set it up inside of Outreach, name the field, and then you'll be on your merry way. So that's basically how you can set it up. And then the utility of this custom field with the email status is because in Outreach, if you go to prospects, and you'd add a filter for email status, you'll see the only thing that shows up here is that custom field we created because there is no email status field in Outreach by default. This dot that you see on emails is not visible. It's not filterable inside of Outreach. It's just like a visual UI thing, but it's not actually a field that's filterable. So we add a text field for you that gives you the ability to see that field in filters. So let's say the common workflow would be a rep wants to see how many emails do I have that are invalid this week. Maybe I want to go and manually enrich them. So I'll pick email status as invalid, click done, and then I can see all my invalid emails basically. And then I can go and work them or filter them based on seniority and try to enrich the important ones or top tier accounts or something like that. So that's one utility. The other one is for Salesforce sync or for a CRM sync. If you want to sync the status back to your CRM, you can't sync the status from this dot. It's not syncable. It's not a field that's syncable. So basically what you want to do is you'd want to have a custom field where you can sync that into Salesforce so you can get that information in. So that's basically the utility of the custom field and how you can set it up and how you can map it. And again, the place where you can add in all your settings and all your features is directly inside of the Boring Outreach embed. So it's not, I forgot to walk through this. So basically, this is a dashboard we build into Outreach through our app. So it kind of looks like the Outreach UI, which is nice. So it's familiar and you know how to use it. And it just shows you a basic report of how many prospects got verified in a certain time frame. So this is for this week. So this is that flow. You can toggle on data and toggle off data just like an Outreach. Then you have the email data accuracy. So it's how many valid emails, invalid emails, questionable emails, which would be emails that we're not able to verify. Doesn't mean they're bad, just means we can't verify them. And missing would be the prospect had no email on their profile when they were added to Outreach or added to a sequence. And then the Boring ROI section, which is nice, it shows you how many emails we prevented from bouncing for you. And that's generally in line with how many invalid emails there were. It could be there was 2 emails on someone's profile that were both bad, and we count those as 2 separate bounces prevented. So sometimes this number could be a little bit higher than this number. And then you have the emails enrich, which is a metric we're not really going to talk about here, but we have a separate plugin called Enrich Emails by Boring, which is the verification plugin plus the ability to enrich the emails automatically. And so the workflow that I showed you with Atara's profile, where I went in manually and changed her email address, and then it reverted the opt-out into that whole thing. So Boring actually just does that for you automatically by default. So when you add someone to Outreach, if their email originally is bad, we go and look for the correct email. If we can find it for you, we put it in automatically. And so you just have like 2 emails there. One's bad, one's good. The good one gets used in sequences, and it's like a really seamless, nice workflow. If you want to check that out, go to our listing for the, again, Enrich Emails by Boring in the App Store, watch the video there, and you can try it out if you want for free. We have free trials for both of our apps, so you can go in, install, create an account, set it up. If you're an Outreach admin, of course, you'll have the ability to set up the plugin, and then you can test it for a limited amount of time with a limited amount of verifications. But yeah, that's basically it. So if this looks useful or to be helpful for the team, feel free to check it out, try it out for free. If you have any questions or need help setting things up, reach out to me at benny@boringplugins.com, or you can chat in with us directly from our website or from our app. So our app has the chat embedded in it. So you go to the app and outreach, you have this little nice chat widget in the bottom corner. You talk directly to me. This gets sent straight to me, and I try to answer pretty quickly. So try it out. Thank you for taking the time to watch a super long video, and hope you found it helpful.